It has been over a year since I've done an updated video on my current home lab setup, and oh boy, has there been a lot of changes. Like last time, all the way down to the dashboard here. Before I was using Heimdall, then I switched to Home R for a little bit, which is still fantastic, but right now I am using Glance. So in this video, what we're going to do is overview all the services I'm currently running. Many of them I believe to be must-have services that you should be running on your home server. And then at the end, we're going to go over kind of how I have everything set up and organized. A vast majority of the things I have running here can be easily spun up with a simple Docker container or even a simple like Proxmox helper script. And the beautiful thing is I don't really have anything too complex. Probably about 90% of everything I'm running is just nice, simple front-end web applications that yourself or anybody in your house can access. Now, this video is sponsored by Twingate, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail when I get to where it actually is in my home lab. But simply put, real quick, it is a wonderful tool that you can use to remotely connect into your home server and access any of the applications or tools that we're going to be talking about in this video remotely. It's done by spinning up a connector on your home network using a client on either any type of computer, mobile phone, whatever, to connect to your home network, and then you can access it as if you're on your home network, whether that be logging into IP addresses, using the terminal, so on and so forth. It is completely free for up to 5 users, and you could give specific users various groups access to certain ports and resources. It's really customizable and it's what I use. Check out the link down below if you are interested. So first, like I said, we're going to start with Glance, the current dashboard that I'm using. It is great. I love using dashboards because it just kind of gives a nice clear interface of everything, especially if you have multiple devices with multiple services on it. Just kind of puts everything together. Easy access to everything. With this one, there are some simple features compared to something like HomeR, which is a lot more feature rich, to be honest. But this basically has everything that I want and need, including right here under services. You can see I got the green checks, or sometimes not a green check, which is just a simple monitoring. Is it offline? Is it online kind of thing? We have DNS stats, which links up to Pi-hole, so I can see how much % of DNS traffic is being blocked by that service. And then I have some other widgets here. I'm not going to dive into everything. I have a whole separate video on this. If I go over to home, this is kind of like a, dare I say, glance of kind of everything I care about. We got some link to news, we got the videos that I'm subscribed to here, some Reddit stuff, some releases of applications, some markets. It's a really nice tool, and personally my favorite thing about it is it's configured really easily with just a simple single YAML file. So that configuration file is really easy just to grab, save, and take around wherever I may be screwing around. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to kind of go in categories here. If I bring this in, this is my website. I do have a full kind of written version of this video if you're interested in checking that out. I am going to go slightly out of order than what is on the website, and for that we are going to start with some of my how I remote connected things, my VPN, and my proxy. Now you'll notice here, this isn't an IP address, this is start@hopkey.net, and that is because I'm using Nginx Proxy Manager to go ahead and run all this. You can see here I have 29 different proxy hosts, and this is just kind of a front-end web GUI for Nginx that gives me really easy ability to add domains, whether that be a local top-level domain or even external domains to specific IPs and ports on my network. So for example, Jellyfin here, this is the IP it's on at this port, and instead of having to go to this, I can just go to jellyfin.hopkey.net. If I click on it, you can see that is in fact the case. For these kind of local domains that I have set up, they all have SSL certificates, so I don't get that kind of annoying message saying, hey, the site's not secure. It's my site. Added some certificates anyway, just to kind of get rid of that. And it makes it really easy and organized for me. So instead of having to remember all these ports and everything, I just need to remember the actual domains here if I'm not going to be using my dashboard for whatever reason. And then from there, if I bring this up, I do have a Raspberry Pi 5 in my little network rack there. This one's powered by PoE. It's really nice. It's always online. And this is where I have my Twingate connector installed. So I use it to remote connect, as well as a DDNS client. This is a little Docker stack that I have on this Pi. I'm going to have to blur out some of this here, but this one right here is the Cloudflare DDNS. This just means dynamic domain name service. My IP address, my public IP address is dynamic, meaning my network, my internet service provider will automatically change it every couple days, sometimes every couple weeks. And when that happens, this kind of scans. It's just like, what's my IP? what's my IP, every so often, and if it detects a change, it's going to report to Cloudflare with the API token and then update the A records on these domains. Very helpful if that's a situation you happen to be in. And then right here, of course, is the Twingate connector. This just runs, and when I connect remotely, it uses this connector to make that encrypt peer-to-peer connection. So let's say theoretically I am on vacation, and for some reason I have the itch to log into a machine on my local network and update a server. So all I would do, fire up the Twingate app. You could see some of the resources there I have available to me. And with me being logged in and the active connection, I can simply just go over to a terminal client, log into one of my hosts, which is on a local IP address. You can see there I'm not connected to Wi-Fi or anything like that. Give that just a minute to connect. And then just like that, I am on my machine as if I'm in my home network. Little password action, hit enter. And just like that, I'm doing some sysadmin maintenance on vacation. Another really cool thing about it is there's aliases. So you see my proxy there. That's just the machine that's running Nginx Proxy Manager. That I set up an alias for hopkey.net, which is already set up on the proxy. So again, not connected to my Wi-Fi, I could go to a local service such as r.hopkey.net and log in and manage things through a web GUI. If you didn't know, my home lab, I'm trying to keep it up to date as possible, but I have a whole GitHub repository here going over how I set up a lot of these things. And under media here, I have some information on Gluten, which is the VPN service that I'm using, not for remote connections like I'm using Twingate for, but this is for torrenting, because frankly it's nobody's business if I choose to download Hannah Montana Linux. So you can see right here I have it in my kind of stack of R services, which we will be diving into. You can see right here I'm running it with the AirVPN. Of all the kind of public VPNs for this purpose, AirVPN is my favorite. It's the one I use. They're not a sponsor. I've never talked to them, but I do have a referral link if you're interested in that. Check it out down below. But it's really easy to set up, very configurable, uses WireGuard, very, very nice. Sticking with the theme of DNS, I am running Pi-hole here. I was using AdGuard forever, AdGuard Home, which is the open source kind of self-hosted version of that. That works great. It's a lot simpler. It's really easy to spin up, but this I'm just using because there's a few more third-party extensions and it also works just as great. You could see a lot of different information, the query types, some of the domains that are most blocked in my network, a lot of iCloud garbage. There's a lot of iPhones that are on my home network. There's other features too that I'm not currently using that I do want to kind of experiment with, such as local DNS records and actually managing that through here, but I'm not currently doing that. This is specifically running as an ad blocker. So next we're going to be diving into what I'm kind of categorizing as tools and utilities. And the very first thing right here is File Browser. Very simple tool that allows me to easily kind of navigate through, copy files, move files, rename files. It works really, really good, except for if you're trying to copy or move very large directories of things. That's probably better to use like rsync and do that through the terminal. But for most little kind of light things, this has been awesome. I was using a cockpit in the navigator previously, but I just find this a little bit easier and more intuitive. It's running in the same kind of container stack as my R utilities. Real nice kind of little view of how much space I have left. You can make folders, files, all that kind of stuff through here. Overall, this is just a really nice tool if you're looking for a simple file browser. Now from there, we're going to dive into Vaultward, and this is my password manager of choice. This here is fully compatible with the Bitwarden desktop clients, browser extensions, and all that. You can see I have it running right here. But not only does it do pretty good password management, and for the password management, if I open one of these right here, you can edit things. So you could change the username, the actual name of the service. I could change right there. Folder, password, you can add authentication keys, change the actual URIs, add notes, all that kind of stuff. And in addition, we can add identity, cards, secure notes, and like the secure notes I use for like API keys and tokens, such as Cloudflare. I have a InfluxDB API stored in there. Just anything super secure, super important, I have right here. Next up, we have Hoarder right here, but this simply is a bookmark manager that has some AI features that I'm not currently using, but it can go ahead and fetch like the metadata images, titles, all that stuff. So it really makes your collection look good. So for example, on this one, if I clicked this little preview, I could get a nice overview of what is going on. We got the whole website here. You could summarize it with AI. You can add notes, give it tags, archive it, favorite, just all kinds of things. I'm not getting into everything, but this is kind of the bookmark manager I use that I don't actually use for like the typical browser bookmarks that you'd expect. It's just kind of like an archive, a vault of resources I want access to later. And another thing that I'm using, which admittedly I'm probably going to start kind of straying away from as I get more familiar with Docker, using it in the terminal, and just having my own compose YML Docker stacks. This, however, is awesome for managing Docker containers, Docker stacks, monitoring various servers with Docker stuff running on it. You can see here, I have 3 different instances that I'm kind of managing through here. I have my Servarrrrr stuff, which is my media server. This one just called Docker, which has some external services that I give public web access to that I kind of have isolated. And then I have Frigate stack right there. This is real nice. So if I go over here to stacks and go over to Servarrrrr, I could manage this whole stack of stuff going on. If I jump into the editor, you can really easily edit the stacks here. You can see file browsers just sitting right there in this stack, which is what I mentioned earlier, as well as gluten here. I'm not going to scroll down because you'll see some tokens. But if you want a really nice web interface for managing Docker and all that, Protainer or Portainer, sorry, is the most recommended. It works great. Overall, I do love it. And now for the very last item in this tools and utilities category, we have Octoprint. Octoprint has been a lifesaver. It is single-handedly responsible for me actually using my 3D printer. Basically, my 3D printer is a dumb printer. It has no smart features, no connectivity. But you install this on a Raspberry Pi, you plug it into basically any 3D printer, and you can remotely control it, manage it, monitor it. You can upload all your G-code files here and start a print from wherever. If I go over here to control, you can see I got a webcam set up to it. So not only can I kind of see what it's doing actively and control it remotely with these tools here, but we could do time lapses. So if I go over here, this was kind of just the first time lapse I did to test it out, and you can see I was printing a little Raspberry Pi 4 5-inch little rack mount ordeal, which is going to go in here. This is my 3D printed rack mount server for 3D printing. Video on that and Octoprint specifically coming soon. But yeah, if you have a 3D printer and you don't want to have it plugged into a computer, this is great. So now we're going to go into media servers, and I have 2 main media servers that I run actively, and that is Plex right here and Jellyfin. These 2 services basically give you the same result, a way to stream content from a single server to TVs, smart TVs, your phone, your computers, all over your home network, or externally if you set that up, just really, really conveniently. Pop your entire media library in there, and you basically have your very own Netflix. Now you may be asking, why am I running both? That is a good question you're asking yourself. Plex personally is not my preference, but it is the main thing that I use because I do have quite a few family members that have access and utilize my home server. Some of them already use Plex. I already have a Plex pass, and when it comes to like having my grandma connect to it remotely, it's way easier for her to just sign in using her Google account or whatever and access it that way. Another pro is it has a lot of third-party applications to kind of expand and make the experience a little bit better, which we'll dive into. And then the major cons of it is Plex tries to, here, let's open it up. This is another problem with Plex. Depending on who you are, this is a pro or con, but Plex really likes to kind of push their own stuff. So built into it, they do have like ad supported content. If that's something you want, congratulations, good for you. And in addition to that, a lot of the like hardware transcoding, live TV tuners for like DVR recording is put behind a paywall. So you have to have Plex Pass to get that. I personally prefer this right here, Jellyfin, because it has the benefit of being way more lightweight, way simple with all the features that you'd expect out of something like this, without any of the below ad-supported content. The only thing that you'll get connecting to this or to your server is the stuff you put on it specifically. And then a pro is the hardware transcoding, access to tuners and recording and all that is not put behind a paywall, 100% free and open source, which is my preference. As if there's a free and open source alternative to something, I generally will always try to lean as hard as I can into that direction. But this comes with the con of the kind of remote connections. I don't want to set up a public URL that you can use to connect to this for remote connections for my family. I don't want to try to get them to figure out how to use a VPN. It's not as easy to get my grandma to connect to this. And in addition, Plex, because it's paid software, they have more funding and more development hours. There's a much wider ecosystem, so there is way more supported devices. For example, and again, my grandma has a much older smart TV. There is no Jellyfin app, but there is a Plex app. So it's just a matter of tinkering around and figuring it out to figure out which one is going to work best for you and your use cases. Also, a big reason I have Jellyfin spun up is a lot of times if Plex doesn't have internet access, it's a hit or miss whether if it's going to let you connect to it. So in those instances, Jellyfins are always here ready to go for me. Which earlier I did mention that Plex has a lot more kind of third-party apps that integrate with it, and Tatuli right here is one of them. Now Plex does have its very own kind of statistics, logs and all that, but this takes it to the next level when it comes to monitoring what's going on. Of course, we have the activity. You can see my wife upstairs is watching the Peaky Blinders, probably one of the, oh no, she stopped. Probably one of the best shows that's ever been made. But you could see like the most watched movies, most watched TV shows. If I head over to graphs, for example, I could get a whole bunch of data on what is going on when and where. So we have the play count by media type, day of the week. So apparently Wednesdays, people aren't really interested in watching as much content. Play count by hour of day. So based on this, it looks like 5 a.m. might be the best time to go ahead and do a server update and restart things. So you get some information and analytics to kind of help you make those decisions. And probably one of the best features of this right here is the newsletter agent. You can set up an actual newsletter that will go out to all the people who are on your server, so you can inform them of what like new movies and TV shows has been added. So now kind of in the same topic of media servers is my Servarrrrr stuff. I get to tiptoe around all this. A lot of these other tools here do most of the heavy lifting, but probably my favorite one out of all of these is Overseer. This is a kind of request and kind of media discovery tool. So you can see here I do have a couple requests for In the Dark and Sneaky Pete, whatever those are. I haven't seen either of those. But for example, if I wanted to approve this one, I would just click approve and boom, it automatically shows up in another application that I'm going to show you in a minute. So now, theoretically, since I approved that, what I would do is go on Amazon or go to a local store and purchase a box kit of all those seasons and rip them onto my server. But again, media discovery is kind of the big thing. If I go over here to movies, for example, you can see the green check means I do already have some of these on the server, but like I don't have whatever this is, so the green check's not there. And what I could do is filters. So if I go over here to filters, and my favorite thing is to go down here to streaming services. So if you don't have a particular streaming service, but you're just curious to what is going on there. So for example, let's go Max. Let's see what's on Max. You can see we have a lot of stuff on Max. So I can see what's on there, and then popularity descending. So this is the most popular content on that platform. So I can see number one is this thing called FOLOW, or this movie called FOLOW. Looks pretty good, very highly rated, so I'll just request it, so then it will pop up on the other service. You can watch trailers, you can see a whole bunch of data when it comes to the actual content. Overall, it's really cool, and if I go back, you could also add more filters, so like you probably saw, I can go by user score. I want things that are at least at 8 or better, and let's say I want at least a good amount of votes. So then you could see now this is all really popular, probably really good content. So nice little media discovery tool there. And then what will happen is those requests will jump into either Sonar or Radar. They are essentially exactly the same. Sonar is for TV shows, Radar is for movies. If I open up Radar here and then let's filter this by missing, you can see Flow is now in here. I also have Mickey 17. So this is what I need to purchase and put in here. Of course, there's other features and whatnot that I'm not going to dive into right now, but you can see in this key, for example, the blue, this one is unreleased and this is just simply missing. So since it's red, I know that I can go and get this content. Since I can't dive into all the features, one really nice feature is just the media management aspect of this. So for example, if I popped in a file, it showed up, I could do like preview rename. It's not gonna have anything to do because it's already named properly, but you can use it to rename movies and TV shows. It's really helpful with TV shows. If you have a bunch of series and a bunch of different folders, it kind of organizes everything for you. If I dive into settings and media management, you can see movie renaming. You could set up your custom format of however you want it to be there. It's just a really cool kind of media management tool. LiDAR here is the exact same thing for music. Bazaar here is very similar, but that is specifically for subtitles and pulling them from like opensubtitles.org or .com. Prowlar, I'm not going to get too far into. I will link to the wiki down below. And then from there we have our download clients. So QBitTorrent here, I'm going to open this one up. This one is a download client. You can see one of the last things I downloaded is a Linux distribution called Ubuntu. It is great for peer-to-peer file sharing, specifically for things like Linux ISOs. And the cool thing about especially QBitTorrent, why I really like it, is it's basically all the features that you would get from the desktop version of this application, but you can view it on, I can view it on any computer, have access to it, put torrent links in it, and it'll automatically download them to my server directly. And all this is funneled through my Air VPN. So if I think it's over, where is it? There it is. Network interface. It's set to TUN 0, which is my tunnel for that VPN through Gluten. I have everything set up, already covered that. If you're interested in Air VPN, check it out down below. Using that link definitely supports the channel. And then we have NZBGet. This is another download client for a different type of format. Use NZB files to download those. Uses new servers and all that. If I go into settings here, go to status. One of the reasons NZB gets really nice, it's super fast. It's written in a C++. And it just has a whole bunch of features. Even here, you could see I have speed testing and connection testing. It's cool because it can automatically download like RAR files, automatically extract a bunch of them to get one file, and then this can like move and rename things automatically depending on how you have it set up and what other services you're using with it. So now the next category is files and images, and this is probably going to be, at least these next two are the most important tools that I use. The two things that if I lost would be difficult to go on without, and the first being Nextcloud. I love Nextcloud so much I can't even describe it properly. It is what has allowed me to completely ditch Google Drive, which is what I was using previously. It's a full-fledged, full-featured alternative to Google Drive, OneDrive, iCloud, whatever type of file manager, cloud file manager you happen to want to be using. It has all the features you'd expect in a file manager, adding, removing, deleting files. There's a desktop tool so you could set up folders on your computer that will automatically sync up to it. And in addition to that, there's so many different applications and extensions that you could use with it. Deck is a really nice Kanban board. Talk right here is basically a full-fledged replacement for like Zoom or Skype. If I go over here and go to apps, you can see everything that it has to offer. There's so many things. So customization, if I go to featured apps, we have federation. That's another really cool thing about it, is if you know somebody else with an Nextcloud instance, you can connect them and be able to easily share files, communicate with each other. We have Nextcloud Office, so it can completely replace like Google Workspaces, Google Docs, full collaborative file management, whether that be docs, Excel documents, presentations, password policies, photos, PDF viewers. This is all things I have enabled. If I go down here to a lot of the stuff I don't have enabled, you have forms, mail, so it includes an entire full groupware suite that you can use for your contacts, mail, and all that fun stuff. Music, news, assistant, it has AI stuff. You can use only Office if you prefer that. Tasks, tables, the possibilities are endless. There's even a whiteboard. So I think it's Draw.io you could have integrated in here. And speaking of replacing things, if you want to replace Google Photos, Amazon Photos, or any other similar service, Image is by far the best tool, and probably out of all these must-have services, this is the must-have service. This right here is some images I took at CES. If I go ahead and like open up this one, for example, this was on an iPhone, so it has kind of the live view thing, so you can actually see that. If I go back out of here, you have your full timeline, so you can see all the photos. You can see I have some old ones in here, but it has all the features you'd expect. If I open up something else again here, we can view the photo or the live version of the photo, copy it, get some information on it, favorite it, trash it, and share it out. If I go to map, this is something that is really cool. And if I go over here, this is going to be in Germany. This was actually at a Nextcloud event, so I can see all the different photos that I've taken in this specific place with all the information. I can add descriptions, put in my favorites, all that. We have a whole tab for sharing. If I go over here to explore, you're going to see as people, so as facial recognition and features to, actually I can show you. I'm going to blur out most of this, but you can see the names here. And then if I see a picture down here that isn't named, so if I go to these pictures, for example, and I do add a name, and then I type in a name that already exists, this is that person. So now it's going to merge these. So you go through, you link up everybody's face properly, and you'll have a pretty good facial recognition system as well. All hosted locally without some big tech conglomerate having access to all your personal photos and media. And it does say buy here, but that's just to support them. It is 100% free and open source. Nothing's paywalled. It has an app, which that's probably the most important thing about it to me, is if I actually open it up, the mobile app that we have here is rather intuitive. It has all the same features that is on the desktop client, and the ability to automatically back up whatever folder or all the recent photos on your phone directly to the service. So all I do, start backup, and now it's going to upload the 10 pictures that I currently do not have backed up to the server. Ooh, new version available. Oh. Now the last one, and I'm just kind of experimenting and playing around with this one, and that is DocMost. You can see I have the Notion logo here. I'm kind of trying to find a Notion replacement because I was using that for quite a while. This one definitely isn't as feature rich as Notion, and I am on the hunt for some tools that are, but this has been working really good. For example, this was when I recently updated the written version of this video. I actually wrote initially in here, threw in all the pictures. It's basically a markdown editor. So if I do a little backslash here, you can see all the various markdown codes, but it has some extra things such as math inline. We could do a bunch of different embedded files from various services, YouTube videos, Google Drive links, or it's advertised as a kind of self-hosted personal wiki or just knowledge base for whatever you want to do. It kind of has a kind of drop-down hierarchy kind of folder structure. You can see I have a writing category with just a bunch of stuff I've been throwing in here. I am using it kind of as a wiki. If I go into editing, you can see I have some like position and border for how I like to do my little picture-in-picture effects. So eventually when I do hire somebody to help me out, I'm slowly building up some documentation so everybody's going to be on the same page here. And same goes with recording. And then like my description and links are right here. Overall, DocMost has been a really fun tool to use. So now we're going to be diving into some of my smart home stuff, and kind of the main thing that I'm using at the moment is Home Assistant. Probably one of the most popular, most widely used smart home self-hosted utilities out there. And to be honest, I have been neglectful of this as of recent. I just set everything up, everything just works, but I do need to spend some time kind of freshening it up. This is one of my custom dashboards I created. This is for the kind of main level. You can see the temperatures. I can edit or manage all the lights, all the window shades here. If I go to the lower level, this is down here. So like if I tap on this one, boop, boop, you'll see a difference there. Everybody in my home has access to this through the app, so they can go over to this tab and actually use this to temporary block Pi-hole. If like my niece, for example, is doing homework, opens up Home Assistant, 2 taps, and you could disable the entire Pi-hole server for a little bit. And if I talked about everything that this tool could do, this video would be 2 hours long. If I go over here to settings, we can see all my devices and services linked up here. If I go back, there's a bunch of automations and scenes. So I have like garage hallway motion, just 2 motion sensors. If somebody walks in that hallway, turns on the light, stuff like that. And then there's blueprints for various devices. So a lot of people, there's a huge community behind this. So people make it a lot easier to add functionality to these devices beyond what is just kind of programmed by default, which is really, really nice. And a lot of my devices on my network are Zigbee devices. And this I actually separated out. I was using a Zigbee MQTT here as a Home Assistant add-on, but I just found it easier to kind of separate it out. So if I want to incorporate it in a different Home Assistant install, it's just really easy just to link it up like that. So if I go to this, it's going to be zigbee.hopkey.net, completely hosted in its own LXC on Proxmox by itself. And here I can add new devices. I can permit join to easily sync other devices up to it. I can manage devices. So if I go to like my kitchen shade, for example, I can see a lot of data and statistics on it. I could go to settings to invert the cover. If you have Zigbee devices, Zigbee MQTT is definitely something worth checking out. And then that takes us to Frigate. This is my indoor NVR solution. If I open this up, I could see all the rooms I have indoors. I do have a Real-Link NVR for all the outdoor cameras. I actually share that with my neighbor, which is in the same duplex that I'm in. Basically, the reason I set this up, these are all also Real-Link cameras. I don't want to buy 5 SD cards when I have a server with a bunch of storage. So I just have all the internal cameras record directly to this, and it works good. Frigate is awesome. I have a little Google Coral TPU. If I go over here to System Metrics, you can see it set up. This is the detectors, the Coral 1 and Coral 2. And this takes a lot of the load off the server for object detection and things like that. So you can see it's recording and monitoring for 5 different cameras, and I'm using just under 2% of my CPU. So having a Coral with Frigate is almost a necessity. And then here I'm going to blur this a little bit, but you can see if I hover over all these various events, it kind of jumps me there in the timeline on the side. So just the interface is beautiful. There's filters and all that for the various alerts, the detections. Overall, this tool has been a blast. I would say a con to it is over here on the configuration editor. If I go ahead and scroll down past all my passwords, it's a real hit or miss on configuring this depending on the type of cameras you have. It is nice in that, like Home Assistant, you can bring in different manufacturers into one platform. But like Amcrest cameras, I couldn't get like the two-way audio to work to save my life. Real-Link, I could get the two-way audio to work, but then I can't use it on the app anymore because it thinks the mic is always in use. So getting some of the specific camera features to work on this sometimes is a hassle, but if you just want to use it for object detection and recording, it is great. So from there, and kind of the final category is going to be my data, metrics, and monitoring, and the main platform that I'm using is Grafana. This has been another one I've been neglecting recently. I'm in the process of updating all my documentation over on the GitHub page for this. But for example, you saw I just opened up a dashboard for the Node exporter, and you can see I do have a Node exporter installed on 2 different Raspberry Pis, so I kind of use this to monitor that and see what's going on. You can see just the slew of different information that you can get. So these are all the network traffic by packets, network traffic drop, speed. So there's a huge spike right here. I probably like connected remotely and backed up some pictures because this Pi has the DDNS server on it at Twingate and all that. And then like if I go back home, for example, go to Proxmox, I have this so I can monitor everything. And this one you do kind of have to select what you want to see. So if I grab that, grab my tank storage, I can then monitor the CPU usage of these various servers, the memory usage. I'm using a lot of it. Uptime is a week and a day. We can see the memory usage. So my NAS sync there was using quite a bit, 50% in the middle of the night. I think it was running a backup task at that time. See what's going on, look at pretty graphs, make informed decisions. Now, I'm not going to dive too far into the actual databases that I'm using, but essentially for Proxmox right here, I'm using InfluxDB. It's just a native way to export and share data. Actually, you know what, I might as well. InfluxDB. And if I go to the Data Explorer, you can see here under Proxmox, I have all the data. So I can go through, check some things, hit submit, and kind of see what's going on. That's a bad example, but if I picked like CPU usage, it would look a lot prettier. I could switch this out to be a heat map, histogram, all kinds of things to actually manage and view all the data that's stored in this database. Now, alternatively, for the Node exporter, I am using Prometheus. This is very similar, just a different database platform. It's not as easy to kind of navigate the data on here. If I do like a CPU, node CPU memory bytes, execute that, and we could see what's going on. Again, you don't really use this unless if you have a reason to view and manage all of this. I use this to collect and store the data, and then I use Grafana to visualize the data. Another thing under data metrics that I'm not going to get too far into because it's very niche is TeslaMate here. This is a whole separate stack that runs its very own instance of Grafana on top of TeslaMate itself, which pulls from the Tesla API. You have a database that everything's stored into, all in just a really nice, neat little Docker Compose thing going on. So then we could see such as battery health, just all kinds of statistics. I just spun this up so we don't have a whole lot of data here. If I go back to dashboards under TeslaMate, let's go look at a trip. So for example, I took a trip to Spokane, and this is a drive that I did, an absolutely sheer comical amount of data that nobody has any reason to need this much information about anything. But you can see my speed, the power, the range, the battery heater status, just a whole bunch of stuff. And you can see as I go across this graph, you can see the specific area in which the data was logged. It's silly, to be honest. All the way down to the elevation here. We can see an elevation meter and be able to see that. So from here to here is all uphill. We're going up a hill. And then on this freeway going down into Spokane, we're going down a hill. just some really cool stuff. Now, to finish off this video, I want to talk about the platform that I'm actually using to run all this, and that is Proxmox. I was using Unraid for quite a while, and I will know Unraid is phenomenal. If I switched back to it, it would be absolutely no sweat to me. I would not be complaining. But I simply just wanted to play around with Proxmox more, and the Unraid, or the formerly Unraid server that I had, this one right here, I installed Proxmox on it so I could set it up as a cluster so I can see them all together. Real nice. And now to the actual organization of everything. I did change a little bit since I did my kind of Proxmox series. Right here, this Servarrrrr, there were 3 containers. I had the Vault container, which managed all the network shares, the actual data. Then we had the Plex Media server as a separate container, and then we had the Servarrrrr container, which was all those kind of media management tools. What I did was I wiped all those. I installed the Plex container with the Proxmox helper script, installed Jellyfin on it, threw Docker on it, just put everything in one, and that is what this is right here, Servarrrrr. I wanted it in an unprivileged container just to kind of keep all the permissions and everything the same across the board. So that's really helped quite a bit, and it's on here that I have this Protainer, this right here, this Servarrrrr. So we have all of these running on there. And it's been working pretty good for just a simple LXC Proxmox container. Also on the single machine, I do have Proxmox backup server, and then I have a Windows virtual machine, which usually isn't running, but I just used it. And so far, its main use case has been to flash Windows ISOs, if I ever need those, because it's rare that I have a Windows machine in my house just ready to go to do that. This makes it easy. All I do is pass through a USB port and life is good. So that's what I'm using that for, and I can actually shut this down because I don't plan on using it again for a minute. On here I have some pools, so we have my tank, which is a comical amount of storage, as you can see there, and then we have my flash pool, which is 4 NVMe drives all working together, and it's on the flash for both the ZimaCube and this one that I have like my boot disks and all that, anything I want to be snappy. And tank is for just storage, media, stuff like that, images. And it's actually on the ZimaCube here where I have a bulk of all the other services running. A lot of them are running independently. For example, this community script little tag here, a lot of these are installed that way. Head back over here, go to the ZimaCube under shell, drop that command in, and then it's going to start a little prompt to get this all set up. So a lot of the things I do have installed that way. So like Grafana is installed with a Docker helper script, and then that's where I have my stack with Grafana itself, Prometheus, InfluxDB, and all that. This Proxy LXC container is just the helper script for Nginx Proxy Manager. Just set that up with the advanced options, and we're good to go. Pi-hole, same situation, Proxmox helper script, set up real easy through there. Docker, this one is a helper script, but on this one is probably one of the most important little containers on my entire home server, and that's because it is running both my Nextcloud instance and the image, the photo server instance. So super, super important that one is. And you can actually see that if I go back to Protainer and I live connect to it. You can see I have 22 containers running. A lot of them are related to Nextcloud, but you can see this also has a DocMost on it as well as Hoarder. And if I go forward, we have the image server, link stack. That's another thing I'm running that I didn't really talk about. Just a nice little kind of link management tree. I have it on like my business cards, so if I give that to somebody, they scan a code, it takes them to that. And then some more Nextcloud stuff, and of course Protainer itself. So that's everything running on that single LXC container within Proxmox. InfluxDB was here, but I moved it to here, so it's offline. I'm not using it at the moment. Zigbee is just Zigbee MQTT completely by itself, so then I can easily just kind of clone this to other places. Makes it pretty easy to manage. Frigate is with Docker, but this instance of Docker specifically is for Frigate or the NVR solution. And then we have Glance running in its own little thing all by its lonesome. Then we have Vault Warden, same situation, completely independent by itself, installed with the Proxmox helper script. A lot of the helper scripts don't really like run Docker containers or anything. They're just installed on the kind of root system with either binary packages, a lot of times with like systemctl services. So that's kind of generally how those work. Tatuli, same situation. Overseer, again, same situation, just a Proxmox helper script. And this right here, this is Home Assistant OS. It was installed with a helper script, but this one is a virtual machine, so it's completely independent from all these. It's using a different kernel and all that. And Home Assistant OS seems, I tried it with Docker a while back, but just using the operating system version of it always seems to work better. And then, of course, we kind of have a matching kind of scheme when it comes to the flash and tank storage, but of course, different amounts of storage, but I named them the same specifically so I can migrate these containers and virtual machines in between the two different NASs if I see fit. And that really is about it, ladies and gentlemen. That is everything I'm running. That was over 30 different services that I have on my home lab, my home server, everything going on over there. So yeah, once again, there will be a text version of everything I talked about. This is kind of what it looks like here. I have some editing and playing around to do with this, but every single thing I'm using, including some things that I did not mention in this video, are going to be here. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to add alternatives and all that. So you'll have a huge list of probably 60, 70 different home lab services that you could check out on this guide. Again, check out Twingate, the sponsor of this video for remote connections. Check out AirVPN if you're wanting to hook it up to like torrent clients and things like that. And with all that, please subscribe, like this video if you did, and please, 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 if you are using anything that was not mentioned or even something that was mentioned in this video, let me know what your stack is. What are you running? What can you not live without that is running on your home server? Or even if you're looking for suggestions, if you have something you're trying to accomplish and you want to do it with a service like this, let us know down below. Somebody will probably reply to you. And with all that, have a beautiful day and goodbye.